Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the very last event of this year's VerseFest. I can't believe we are already here. The week has flown by, and it's been just an incredible experience. I have been blown away by the week of poetry, events, workshops and lectures. I've had the good fortune to be the poet in residence this year. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Brecken Hancock. Welcome to this live stream and for those of you who have joined us on the Zoom call, welcome to Zoom for this celebration of our amazing volunteers. So before we start, I want to acknowledge that I'm joining this event from my home in Ottawa. And Ottawa is also VerseFest's home. VerseFest takes place on the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabeg people. A week ago today, we opened the festival with the Poet Laureate event, where we heard from Albert Dumont, Southwind, Ottawa's English language Poet Laureate. Southwind is a poet, storyteller, speaker, and Algonquin traditional teacher born in Algonquin territory in Kitigan-Zibi, Anishinaabeg First Nation. When he was chosen as Poet Laureate in April 2021, he told APTN that he would use his 2-year term to do his best to erase bigotry and discrimination in Canada's capital. Dumont said that Ottawa residents are living in a time where a lot of people are disheartened and discouraged. And he said we need to be spiritually and emotionally uplifted. In the context of a week, month, year, decade of painful global and local political crisis, and in the wake of losing Lee Maracle just over a week ago now, I just wanted to begin tonight by reading one short poem by Poet Laureate Albert Dumont as a balm on the path to healing and to honor the Algonquin and Anishinaabeg people on whose land we are on. So this poem is called Where is the Bird? From Dumont's book of poems, Sitting by the Rapids. Where is the bird? Where is the lake I can wade into and emerge, my heart filled with righteousness? Where's the trail in the thick woods leading to the circle where my spirit can replenish itself with courage and truth? Where is the bird which would lift me upon its back so I can fly with it, searching for the place where I can discover again purpose and a reinvigorated sense of humanity? My friend, the lake you search for is any of your territory. The trail leading to the circle is the only trail necessary. The bird you seek is the eagle. It calls to you. Thank you, Albert Dumont Southwind, for those words. And so for tonight's event, we're here to celebrate some of the writers who volunteer their time to make this event happen. These 8 amazing writers have done a ton of heavy lifting to make this event what it is, a smooth running, internationally recognized, transformative poetry festival. Tonight, we'll hear from Sunita Fazage, Mike Caesar, Lana Crossman, Lori Koensgen, Christine Sung, Sultana Shireen, L.M. Rochefort, and Alison Calvern. And before I introduce each one of these wonderful writers individually, I want to tell you a bit about the volunteer effort required to carry out the festival. I spoke with Avonlea Fotheringham, the festival administrator and soon to be the new festival director, to get a sense of exactly what the scope of the volunteer labor is to bring VerseFest about every year. And Avonlea let me know that the vast majority of this festival is carried out by volunteers every year, from the board to the organizing committee to the boots on the ground folks at the venue and beyond. In a normal in-person year, volunteers are imperative for making sure attendees feel welcome and that the site events are well managed and that they run smoothly. There are guest lists to manage, lineups to check in, training and use of the POS system. There are ushers and merch desk managers and bartenders and sound system managers and volunteer drivers to shepherd the fleet of over 60 poets that travel to Ottawa to take part in the festival. This year with the hybrid model, aside from the bar, we still needed people to volunteer for a majority of these jobs. And even though it was scaled down for the in-person logistical support, all of this volunteer effort remained a requirement, and the festival wouldn't be what it is without the volunteers we have here today to celebrate. So in other words, the festival as we know it and enjoy it and love it is only possible because of the enormous effort of the volunteers. Furthermore, many of the volunteers you will hear read tonight have been with VerseFest for years and have been volunteering their time and effort with VerseFest for years, and we're beyond delighted to honor them. They deserve all the recognition and attention in the world. And when I spoke with Evan Lee, she said, and I quote, "I'm blown away every year by how gracious and dedicated to the festival the volunteers are and committed to performing their roles to the absolute best of their ability. Working with them is honestly one of my favorite parts of the festival." And with that, I'd like to introduce tonight's first reader. I'm missing a page somehow. How did that happen? Okay, sorry, technical difficulties. Give me a second here. Sunita is our first reader, but I want to do justice to the bio that she sent me.
I'll give you a bit of time here, Brecken, and just say thank you so much to all of you. And there are many more other volunteers that have not necessarily been able to attend tonight, but it truly, Brecken nailed it. That's exactly what I said. I am consistently extremely impressed and honored to work with each of you every year. I cannot wait until we're back in a physical space and working together again soon. And I just really, I value you all so much and your contributions to the festival. And I really want to stress that we would not be able to do it without your help and assistance. And so we're so thrilled to be able to hold some space to honor you folks tonight. So thank you all for being here.
Thanks so much, Evan Lee. I did find my page. So thank you. Thank you for those words. And I will, so I'm gonna start with our first reader, Sunita Fazic. Sunita is an award-winning Bosnian Canadian poet, writer, and playwright. She has published a novella, a children's book that's also been translated into French, and numerous poems and short stories across literary journals. Her play, Blissful State of Surrender, will premiere at the GCTC here in Ottawa in February 2022. So make sure to catch that. Over to you, Sunita.
Thank you. Glad you found that bio. I was about to send it to you again. All right, so I'll just quickly give a little bit of a context for the few poems I'm going to read. They're coming from my first book manuscript of poetry that I've recently sent to publishers, and it's called Affection for Otherness. It's a collection that's split into 3 parts. The first one is called Domestic Wild, and it's about kind of honoring queer families and my family in particular. And then the second section is called Refugee Mouth, and it's about all these marginalized others, like my Bosniak people who've gone through a genocide and been through forced exile and have then come to countries like Canada that have their own genocidal history and the complexities of all that. And it ends with a section called Affection for Otherness, and it's about affection for other than human beings in particular and more than human embodiments, and recognizing that we are not just human bodies, but that we're multiplicities, of bacteria, bodies of water, etc. So there's this kind of trajectory of affection for otherness. So I'll start with the first poem, and I just want to kind of give you a sense of how it's written. It's titled Stepmother, but you have to imagine the step is in brackets. Stepmother. He was 2 when you first met. You may have missed his first step, mother, but you changed his diapers, sang lullabies, and worried when he came too close to the sidewalk curb, cars threatening your heart in ways previously unknown. Eyes puffed by fatigue and frustration, tears falling in the sink full of dishes, your days began to reverberate with the melody of Tupperware and lunchbox zippers, hands full of children's books, fidget toys, and fire trucks, feet growing fretful of Lego pieces, treacherous as paper cuts. The distance between becoming a woman and a stepmother, measured by that stretch before and after you moved in with us on Charlevoix Street, in that shabby two-bedroom in the town's poorest neighborhood. You remember. I know your private pains, my love. The way its thorny hands stretch into your chest, zapping you from crown to toe each time he finishes the homework by your side, and you silently gaze at the parental signature box before handing it over to me. Or that time the teacher asked him to erase the D he'd proudly penned after our marriage, that invisible initial in his last name, BF, deleted. The casual effacement of your mothering haunts the frame drawing still, barely visible on the page, that officializing space which refuses to acknowledge you. How many hours you've given to screens, books, workshops, perfecting positive parenting techniques because becoming a stepmother is like shedding skin or growing another pair of arms. As one cooks, the other wipes, the third hugs, while the fourth tickles him to a fou rire. Tears of joy falling in the sink full of dishes, as he hugs you, repeating over and over again, Je t'aime, maman, maman, je t'aime. And the next poem is titled Refugee Mouth. I go to speak, and the dentist interrupts. Asks where I was raised because my teeth tell their own story in a language he is trained to understand. The black fillings, traces of times past, tell him I'm from Eastern Europe. They didn't spill fluoride in potable water, and my poor teeth are a testament to the strength of an invisible, impersonal hand. After all, he said, we don't choose the water systems that sustain us, before needling my mouth numb and drilling, drilling, drilling. What he didn't see are the days spent without water or toothpaste fleeing the siege of Sarajevo, or the years lived on the run from country to country, refugees whose mouths craved food and drink, our saliva-drenched pearls not a priority. I had my first root canal at 10, in a dentist's office whose language I could not speak or understand. He handed me a pink toothbrush after the torturous procedure, eyes filled with that look of pity which sealed my lips shut. Floss and brush as I do, morning and night, I cannot wash myself clean of these memories, lodged deep in the cavities of my refugee body, mouth spilling secrets, withholding others. The next poem is titled, How Senseless My Species. History rarely yields to one species alone, but impossible to forget when it does. What shield could protect against giant dinosaurs' footsteps? Their skeletons crushed by the slow passage of time, turned to oil by erect apes, to be wheeled by me, human woman in a metal machine. I pump petrol, sensing how senseless my species. The heat wave reminds me we are floating in space, around a giant ball of fire, whose solar winds forge an invisible magnetic shield that protects us from itself. How easy to forget how closely we flirt with fire. And the final poem I'll read tonight is titled Affection for Otherness. I have lived through the redrawing of maps and the collapse of borders. Borders broken like bones or defended like kin by time and force. Force blast of a shell, Sarajevo seized, buzzing ears, ears that have heard the cracks of sniper shots. Shots of rakia to wipe clean the open wound. Wound that can't heal my lost Olympian city. City of ghosts, so close to death, burning wood fast, fast, faster as you run for rainwater, run for your life. Life without sleep, in shock, in endless intestinal infections, infections caused by unwelcome bacteria entering the border of body, body as if possessed, a host to billion others, a hybrid thing. Thing is, how does one get to know the many, their inner cities? Cities of fungi, bacteria, and water in this more than human country of flesh, Always, yes, always already becoming other, irrelevant of my will and I mean we begin to sprout affection for ourselves, affection for otherness. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sunita. Those images were so powerful, and I know they're going to stay with me. The root canal. Thank you very much for those powerful words. I'm going to go to Mike Caesar. Mike Caesar grew up on Manitoulin Island and now lives on unceded Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory in Hull, Quebec. Some of his poems have appeared in journals such as Arc, Carousel, The Fiddlehead, The Malahat Review, Otterwater, and Vallum. He has a chapbook coming out in spring 2022 with Anstruther Press. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Mike.
Thanks, Brecken, and thank you, VerseFest, for this chance to read. The first poem I'll read is, it's an ode to my eyelids, and that's the title, Ode to My Eyelids. Soul blinds, lashed. Prayer screens, unused. When you're held against the sun, I see stars. You telegraph fatigue and frustration. Do what you can to guard the ravenous eye, welling up over crimes of the times. A couple of shady enablers, washing and renewing, servile, discreet, residing blindly at sight's very seat. In a typical day's work, you shudder hard against the dragged, body-bagged hours, overseeing the illusions. You veil boredom's insolence, ripple through sleep. One day shrouds drawn down as I lie in state, the wellheads tapped out of tears. So the next poem is inspired by a reference book that I came across in the Ottawa Public Library. It's called The Dictionary of the Middle Ages. It's multi-volume. It's pretty incredible. So this poem's called From the Dictionary of the Middle Ages. Open the compendium titled Life, purple bound, colossal, meticulously compiled over decades by a master organizer who makes no claim to originality, to sudden dynasties of day and night. Many branching hours, laws, elements comprise provinces, the palaces of kings and over-kings, guarded by Varangians for 40 numismata, as well as spices and occasional sugar. The past, not abstract past, a miniaturist depiction of the Sienese defeat or the healing of Porkel's wounds, most vividly the death wound to the throat, or, inclining us to solace, Charles the Bad's fate by servant, open flame, alcohol-soaked bandage, a moral commentary to be filed under wine and winemaking. And lastly, I'll read a poem about clams, and it's called Clams. Clams who bury themselves in clay where earth meets water, propose smooth canyons of retreat. Flash nacreous, they seem to say, trace your aims in sand, hiding nothing, revealing less, suggesting, yes, there is nourishment there in the lake bed. Those bivalves, seeming naive, roam equal to the weight of the great lake bearing down, and the heavens above that, and the mantle heaving below, flexing all creation. Clams who trust in fish, in fickle fish, enduring pearl divers and parasites and mobbing toxins, harrowing avenues of sunken muck and filtering. Harbor what a clam does, interior lined with mother of pearl, like a milky blind eye. They are both halves and whole, just as I, biped, am bivalent, and blink through lids at currents, at passing clouds. Oh, happy clam, I walked the streets and thought of you. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Mike. Those clams are amazing. And I see people clapping, and I know that Zoom is a bit of an odd medium for reading, but I see that people are putting things in the chat, and I really encourage those of you who are in the audience to do that if you feel moved to do so. I did lose that page. I felt like I was very organized coming into this, but I realized that it was because my 7-year-old handed me the papers off the printer. So I guess something was bound to go wrong. But maybe with that one little mistake, we don't have good luck. So I think that one little mix-up is a blessing for tonight. So next we're gonna hear from Lana Crossman. And Lana Crossman is an Ottawa-based poet who grew up in rural New Brunswick. Her poetry has been published in Guest, Bywords, Apartment 613, Feed, Feral, and The Light Ekphrastic. She won Carleton University's Lillian I. Found Award for Poetry in 2020 and was on the shortlist for the John Newlove Poetry Award in 2018. Thank you so much for joining us, Lana.
Thank you, Brecken, for the introduction, and for VerseFest for having us, and everyone who's here. So I'm going to read 4 short poems. They're all ones that I've written in the past year. And the first one is about an Ottawa location. It's a stormwater creek in the West End. And it's a place I walked almost every day during the pandemic. And I found it to be detoxifying in many ways. From Pinecrest Creek with love. They say you have no filter, so let it be me, love. You can run off, I'll absorb you. Let your storms drain right through me. I'll pick up your paint-covered spray cans, Wonder Bread crumbs from sated ducks, brown-filled bags tied up in trees. They say they'll remediate me, but I wear my scum-scarred banks with pride, because it was me who urged you on, a message in a broken bottle, from the beginning to the beaches where you'll leave me at last, purer than the day you were born. So the next poem, I'm going to continue with the water theme, but this was created from an erasure of a poem by Natalie Diaz called Waste and Sway, and it's called Volta Eels. At the surface, alchemists turn sun slants to gold and amber in silty streams. Down here, we lurk alone. Our shadows sway lethargic. Murky currents ruffle blousy fins, our sole conceit. But when we hunt, we shine sweet electricus. Lupin-like, we corral prey. Our sparks cleave open a liquid sky. Our organs play a dirge for the dead. And so we'll make it 3 with the water theme. This time it's Niagara Falls. But it's really about my grandmother and a childhood memory that was made even more vivid by a souvenir photo from our trip. It's called Niagara Falls. Later, your kitsch would embarrass me, but then you were a wonder. Force of nature, source of power, in a pink print blouse and polyester shorts. Atop the Skylon Tower, we posed for a photo. I feigned falling, eyes wide, mouth set in an O. You laughed, your clairol red hair frizzy from the mist. You held me, kept me safe, surprising strength in your freckled arms. In the backdrop, Horseshoe Falls hugged us like a liquid Lucky Charm. The sound of the fall's brass cheers became so familiar that when it was gone, the silence felt foreign. So my last poem I'm going to read, it sort of continues the idea of memories, both their elusiveness and their heaviness. And it's a glossa. It's written in the glossa form. So for anyone who doesn't know that, it's you take 4 lines from another poet's work and you work them into your poem and make it your own. So the 4 lines that I chose were from a poem by Don McKay called Drag, an amazing poem. So I'll read his 4 lines first, and then I'll move right into my poem, which is called A Beta, or amyloid beta. I am mostly memory, which, though photogenic and nutritious, rich with old-time goodness, is notoriously heavier than air. The body is 75% moving water. The brain, 90 billion neurons that fire, then die. I can sing yesterday by heart, scroll 20 gigs of InstaFeed, recall that birthday, the meal photogenic and nutritious, rich. I am everything I've ever done, everyone I've ever loved, retained. I am mostly memory, which is fluid, repressed, lost. Any gelatin silver image, like that one of the ladies with finger curls in the garden laughing with old-time goodness, is notoriously prone to fading. Fibers tangle, plaques accumulate, but all I know is fleeting. Jet streams dissipate. Souvenirs leave you floating heavier than air. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lana. I felt like even though you didn't introduce your last poem as a water one, it had memory as fluid and it had that liquidity. I really appreciated your poems tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Laurie Koensgen. Laurie is a writer and educator living in Ottawa. Her poetry has appeared in journals, anthologies, and online magazines across North America and in the UK. She was shortlisted for the Malahat Review's Far Horizons Award for Poetry in 2018. She was also an honorable mention in ARC's Diana Brebner Prize in 2018 and the New Quarterly's Occasional Verse Contest in 2019. Her poem Gravities was featured in the League of Canadian Poets 2021 Poetry Month celebrations. Laurie is a founding member of the Ruby Tuesday writing group. Her latest chapbook, Blue Moon, Orange Begonias, is with Rose Garden Press. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Laurie.
Thank you, Breck, and thank you for the introduction and also for your lovely set of poetry last night. My thanks to everybody at VerseFest for all the brilliant poets and the tireless team holding everything together. I have a personal shout out as well to my writing inspiration at this time, to novelist, poet, and Ulysses reader, Brian Doyle. Brian has been my relentless pen pal through a lot of this pandemic. And our correspondence has really encouraged me and given me a lot of joy. On the subject of joy, I have a new chapbook with Rose Garden Press called Blue Moon Orange Begonias, and it launches in 2 weeks on December 5th with London's Words Festival. But tonight I'm going to read 3 poems published elsewhere. The first was in Literary Review of Canada in their work-themed issue a few years ago. And it's about my work as a creative artist and how that is often hard won. Provenance. I have been sitting on my hands so long, my knuckles have merged with the knots in this wood and sent down taproots. Mandrakes draggle beneath my woman's calm. Don't rip up these roots for your amulets. Their tongues will shriek and unseat your reason. This is my handiwork. These are my charms. My next poem is composed of 3 fanciful scenes about a young child and a cob of corn. And it's for my son, Jonathan. Cob and child. This cob of corn is a spinning top, gift wrapped in a paper husk. You tear it loose and toss away the tattered tassel ribbon. It turns in your palms and twirls across the table. Yellow ripples spill their filaments of silk. This cob of corn you nibble on is music curled on a player piano roll. Summertime, it plunks, and the living is easy. Stubborn licks that stick in my head the way corn sticks in your teeth. This cob of corn, all the kernels shorn, is Van Gogh's impastoed field, ochre furrows of sun-drunk wheat. Your yellow hair is a pulse of butter. Daubed with his indigo, you run among the sheaves. And finally, my last poem, On the Threshold of Winter as We Are. Cathedrals. You're a long, slow moan that I hear in my chest, the way bugle music thrums a choir, the assembled mourners, the ribs of pews. In the open field where first snow has veiled the jaundiced grass, 2 deer rub their muzzles on frozen stubble, the length of their elegance, a stand of bare trees. A long, slow moan rises from the cold ground. Thank you, VerseFest. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you so much, Lori. And I love hearing song in the middle of poems. So I really appreciated that. And the cob of corn. And yeah, thank you so much for your reading tonight. Now we're going to hear from Christine Sung. Christine lives in Ottawa. She's been writing since her teens and has been published by Bywords. You can follow her on Instagram at Breezy Nostrils. Christine writes mostly lyrical poetry on a wide-ranging variety of topics, including experiences of trauma and her mental health journey. She says that writing has been an anchor on the pathways to healing. Christine, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Brecken, and thank you to VerseFest for all the hard work that you've done. I mean, the team behind VerseFest. So the first poem I'd like to read, I actually published with Bywords. It's entitled Labor. Leaving footprints in the snow behind, scattered erratically so the wolves don't follow me. Pack mentalities as solitude is planted in my feet. Labored breathing grows in my lungs. exhaling from a distance as if the breath did not belong to me. The snow is packed against my footsteps. I wonder if the woods ever get lonely, if the naked trees make them ache for buds to form. A vicious cycle more cruel than winter itself. I make my peace with distant memories of warmth and growth. As my labored breathing grows, I remember how spring sun rays feel on my feet. And my next poem that I'd like to read is dedicated to my cat Chiquita. It's entitled 7 Lives. Loneliness clings to my cat's fur. I pet her for comfort, but know I can't soothe her insecurities. Life leaves you matted without a brush, only a brush with death. Inadequacy bleeding like fleas. Oh, no calming can rid her of the infectious and persistent purrs that greet me at the door. Abandonment steeps into her and pours into me. They left me for dead. They left her for dead. The tea goes from simmering to boiling over. The bitterness bites at my tongue as I refuse to change the taste. I'm desperate to know why you left me cold as I take another sip. This next one is entitled Seeds of Madness, which I actually submitted to CV2 Sick Poetics issue. So mania cracks a hole in the sidewalk, breaks your back as you backslide, waters it with intentions of grandeur. Plant seeds you can't sow, you can't reap in this now. I'd like to drown the seeds of madness because sanity is for the middle class. I'm not saying that some people are more mad than others in the system, but the poor get the shortest straw and can't suck up enough water to grow the seeds of healthy intentions, and so I digress. I disagree with most points of view that people are crazy. They are mad, angry about the lack of water in the world, mad that they have to die to get attention, and even then they fall through the cracks. My second last poem of the evening is 7 Ways to Stunt Your Growth. 1, don't grow. Stay stagnant. Let the weeds overwhelm you and take a hold of your life until you are a shrunken version. Squeeze every last drop out of the wick. You always did burn the candle at both ends. Ruminate on the woes of the world and continue to look back on the everyday bullshit. 4, don't bother reading. Reading is for people who actually want to grow creatively, and you're not one of them. 5, swipe through Instagram. Double tap every picture of a dog or a baby or a house you'll never grow into. 6, whine because you don't got the money for the cheese. You're lactose intolerant anyways, but who cares? Lastly, shrink it in the dryer. You never needed to fit in your own skin, and baggy is overrated, you tell yourself. My last poem in the evening was actually drawn from inspiration that I got from Jim Johnstone's reading. So he wrote about some of the previous medications he's been on and kind of dedicated poems to them. So this poem is for my ex-antidepressant. Escitalopram. I spent hours contemplating my life with you in it. I wondered if I'd feel different. I spent 2 decades, telling myself I don't need medication, but my anxiety caved and I caved into a tiny crevice. I spent a decade on you, but only a month trying to live without you. How, I asked myself, through crying fits. I spent seconds realizing it was going to be okay. Grounding only takes a nanosecond, and it's more effective than you. I spent minutes thinking I'd miss you, the clarity you gave me as racing thoughts came to a halt. The emptiness settles in. I spent years hiding inside the cracks of my knuckles because I was afraid to come out of the closet and speak my truth for once. I now spend moments without you in my life. I acknowledge the good you did, but maybe, just maybe, I can thrive. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Christine. I love hearing that previous readings at VerseFest inspired you. And I think that when I read your bio, that you are exploring your mental health journey, it did remind me of Jim Johnstone's poems, also just speaking really honestly about that and how much so many of us can relate to that and really appreciate it. And so thank you for sharing that with us tonight.
Thank you.
Our next reader is Sultana Shireen, who is known by her nickname Shazi. Shazi started writing in her junior school's magazine. She did a master's in English literature from Dhaka University in Bangladesh. After coming to Canada, she kept her writing alive and wrote in different Bengali community journals. In Montreal, she did a degree to become a programmer analyst and even learned French. There, Shazi also worked as an interpreter for refugees. In 2007, she started writing in a Bengali blog, in a Bengali blog community, and became very popular in the global Bengali diaspora. Shazi currently has 6 books, 4 in poetry, and hopes to translate her works into English. She's been volunteering at VerseFest for the past 4 years, and tonight she will read poems in English and also one in Bangla. Thank you, Shazi.
Thank you, Beck. It's very nice to see you all and, hear you all. And thank you, VerseFest and Monty. I'll read a poem from one of my book. It's a Bengali, actually. I mostly write in Bangla, but nowadays I started translating my own poetries. And I am reading a poem. The name is The Night Awakes in the Cup of Coffee. The dream that reminds me the dawn at Kuakata, a beautiful beach in Bangladesh. The footsteps erase the name of near and dear ones over the sand. I hold you in my fist. I need you dearly. Sometimes it seems more than that. One sad robin knows the sorrows of others. If it rains in the desolate land, river becomes so unhappy. It's better to walk in the dew-covered grass rather than washing clothes. But a poet washes clothes in the middle of the night while drifting with poems. Here the night awakes with the minus temperature. To be alive, what is the most important? The cup full of coffee or the beach at Kuakata? The nicotine in your hand or the gloominess of whiskey? Actually, which is whiskey? Among us, who would go to who? Individuals goes to who? Among us, who would go to who? Individuals goes to who? Now I will go to my another poem. It's in Bengali and it's from my book Sparkle of Love. Sparkle of Love is the cover. I didn't translate it. I read in Bengali. The title is actually চোখ চোখ চোখের স্বভাব দেখতে থাকা চোখ দুটোকে সামলে রাখিস তোর আমার চোখের ভেতর আকাশ থাকে পাখি হয়ে উড়তে থাকিস ইচ্ছে মতন একটু যদি হয় অবসাদ বসতে পারিস চোখের কাছেই নদী থাকে, নদীর কাছেই ঘাসের উপর একটু না হয় বসেই গেলি, তোর হাতের মুঠোর ভেতর জোনাক জলে সন্ধ্যা হলে আমায় না হয় সেই জোনাকে আলোটুকু ছুতে দিলি। বুকের ভেতর যে বুনো হাঁস আদর ভরে সাঁতার কাটে চন্দ্রাহত, সে নাকি রোজ বিনি সুতার মালা গাঁথে, আমায় কেবল সেই মালাটা পরতে দিবি। পথ হারানো পথিক যেমন পথের দিশা চায়, তোর কেন আজ আমার মুঠোর হাত হারাবার ভয়? কাছেই আছি, তোর কাছেই, চোখের আলোর মতো ঘুমেলে যে স্বপ্ন আসে সেইখানেও আমিও। ঠোঁটের ভাঁজে যেই আদরে সকাল জাগে তোর, আমায় কেন খুঁজে বেড়াস চোখে নিয়ে ঘোর? চোখ দুটো তোর আমার চোখেই ঘর বেঁধেছে কবে, বলতে পারিস কার অপরাধ, কার বনবাস হবে? বলতে পারিস কার অপরাধ, কার বনবাস হবে? Thank you. Actually, I am living here in Canada 29 years. But when I walk in the street, I feel like I'm walking back home. There is always a connection in the path. When I walk, I think, I hope one day it will, take me to that path back home. And that's all my poetry all about, love and, my memories and everything. Thank you very much all. It's very pleasure to be here. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you so much, Sultana, for reading for us tonight in Bengali. I see people in the chat have been enjoying it so much to hear you read in your first language. And I also really enjoyed the transition, the repetition in your work. Thank you so much for sharing it with us tonight. Next, we have LM Rochefort. LM, Lise, is a bilingual poet and portfolio careerist, grateful to be living in Ottawa, Ontario, and Val-de-Mont, Quebec, the unceded land of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. She is president of the Arc Poetry Society and is the associate poetry editor for Arc Poetry magazine. She studied journalism at Carleton University, worked in community mental health programs, the travel industry, translation, and research. Her poem, Hella Cells, was longlisted for the Montreal International Poetry Prize. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. It could be Hila Cells, maybe. Her work has appeared in Geist, Arc, Truck, as well as a dozen chapbooks. Her multimedia installation and video poem Escalator was featured at Blink Gallery. She is a founding member of Ottawa's Ruby Tuesdays as well. Lise, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I really look forward to hearing your work.
Merci, Brecken. Thank you so much. And it's really a privilege to read amongst you all. It's really been so lovely to hear everyone. In an older poem, literally in the wake of COP26 talks on climate change, Gyre. And if the molecules, and if one binds to that other one on the water's currents spin in the oceans that are one water and are not empty but open swirls to all our detritus. And when the plastic sun-kissed bits, pink as plankton and red as shrimp or masked as krill, and the entropy, and if the fish, and if the birds eat the fish, and if the birds feed their young and the young die with red bottle caps stuck in their bellies, and if the rot of the dead chicks is washed by the rain, is pushed to the wash, to the creek, to the sea, and the cap kills over and over, and the compounds, the bisphenol A in the cap and in the cauldron, and the sea soup mix, an open mouth where the gyre spins in the Pacific and the Atlantic, and the rest of the one ocean, and if we eat the fish, and if the molecules. FYI, in this next slightly surreal poem, Richard Trevithick, the actual inventor of the steam engine, is mentioned, but all in the service of play, not accuracy. So think foggy ocean ports, mechanical sex dolls, etc. I'd love to read this with a beatbox artist sometime in the background who could make all the proper sounds, since I was having fun with sound and with anachronisms in this poem. And that's a great thing that steampunk allows one to do, isn't it right? Steampunk romance. Foghorn claws deep groove in gloom, and there's this swish, swish of tired river traffic. Richard Trevithick boing boings aboard Alice, didit-daw-dits, the code in the slot on her arm, cranks the key in her copper IUD. Chugga chugga, big boy, she says, no wooing necessary. Boots schluck in mud outside, muck up young man's machinations. It's slow going, ka-thunk, clackety clack, the wheezy pull of crankshaft hearts, tick-a-tack, toenails in cutout wellies, echo off sewer walls. Peace, man, peace. Polite pop and tip of steampunk hat as he passes. Pipes protest inside stone, thunka, hiss, crawl and clatter. Extractor fan clangs, his metal kangaroo tail ramps up, tick, tick. A stylus touchpad and a stylish hiss from an analog switch. He spits in gutters. In another country, a tinny voice splashes out of the handheld shower phone. Quick kiss, and without a quill to quell her ardent keyboard, tap, tap, click it, click, ding. Lights out on our love, she types. One warning. Two, the cuckoo pokes its head out of its hole. Uh-oh, uh-oh. Picasso said, all art is theft, and that phrase is the short epigraph at the start of my next poem, though I added apologies to Elizabeth Bishop, since this poem is my slightly twisted take on her masterpiece, One Art. Hers is one of my favorite all-time poems, a villanelle, as I'm sure most of you know, that begins with the line, the art of losing isn't hard to master. This is called One Skill. The skill of loosening, not difficult to do, no biggie. Who doesn't have that goal in mind, to lie back, loosen the laces, kick off the shoe, cut back a little every day, make it a mini coup, loosen your grip. Yes, unbind the waistline. The skill of loosening, man, not that hard to do. Then slow work at slackening. Give up hive mind, big office, titles, things you thought were you. Be still. Accept this blessing. You'll not be disinclined to watch stress slip its moorings. I did, still do. Like an orange peel separating from the rind. Turn in, tune out, drop it, repeat. Take time for you. There are many things you could eschew. Release the tension, the donkey work, the grind. That skill of loosening begs chillax. Who knew? But loosening morals, those double standards, ooh, and maybe this is all a lie. Be kind. The skill of loosening is our usual go-to, though we may be, say it, we may be left behind. My last poem was read about a month and a half ago on CBC's All in a Day with Alan Neil. Both Laurie and I were interviewed for the celebration of the 15-year anniversary of our writing group, the Ruby Tuesdays Poetry Collective. And just the night before that reading, the two Michaels, Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, were the two Canadians were finally released from prison in China. I do hope they are doing well. This poem was written for them and for those who are still unfairly incarcerated throughout the world. Prayer for the prisoner. To know God, but to the God-like hidden in our humanity, let the light be unimpeded. Let it move freely across the floor. Let the concrete warm till it sweats. Let the cockroach be trained to herd its friends, to muster their strength, to enter the keyhole, to maneuver the bolt. Let the door swing open and the fresh air enter. Let the moon show its face so it pours its milk blue light through the darkness. Let its mercy fill the empty bowl. Merci. Thank you.
Thank you, Elise. Thank you so much. And congratulations on the 15-year anniversary of Ruby Tuesdays. And I feel like that reading encompassed such a wide journey from the concerns that have been lingering with us all, I think, after COP26 to unjust imprisonment, and to have some fun in between as well with the art of loosening. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Last but not least, we have Alison Calvern. Alison was born in Bermuda. She grew up in New Brunswick, Saskatchewan, Quebec, British Columbia, Paris, the Black Forest of Germany, and Ontario. She moved back to Ottawa in 2015. She is a publisher, editor, writer of letters, and has been reading and writing poetry for a quarter of a century. She also writes memoir. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Alison.
Well, thank you. As I'm listening to all the readers, I realize, wow, the best part of poetry festivals is just hearing everybody and their wonderful work. Thank you so much. So I have 3 poems. To receive. On Somerset Street, I see a woman, sunlight tangled in her hair, her mood infectious. Even the letter carrier smiles. And of course he would, at youth, at the smooth line of hip and thigh. Pulchritudinous, that old word newly sprung for her swinging gait. There is music in the air, but I am not jealous. She is my daughter, who lifts weights, does downward dog. Her muscles strive for perfection. You abandoned me, she said, the door slamming shut. And here I admit a failure of imagination, that she is blind to me on this street. She will not see me anywhere. When I was her age and choosing a lover, no, I was choosing a father for my child, a man whose heart can release nothing but sperm by way of action. A man with a ledger, a complicated set of columns, what is owed, what is spent, what is left, what is right. Nothing is right. My body a spiral of palsy, now that I am anathema to her. Anathemas even, in the plural, language barely able to keep up with her scorn, which was not there when she emerged. Eyes open, her body in rotation, stopping at the tremble in my thigh. We could see she was enchanted with light as we lifted her into our arms, the chambers of my heart rearranging, a galaxy moving in, stardust wind giving polish to her cheek and laugh. And though I have been unable to save her from her father, I wish that she conceives that the bowl of her hips becomes full of elbows and heels, her friends giving, receiving blankets, to receive the common and enormous miracle that is a life. Anybody can hold a heart. Do not reach in as if plucking an apple from a bowl. Follow protocol. Wash your hands, use gloves, no jewelry. Stand on the left side. Look at the face, its calm permission. Slide your hands slowly into the chest cavity until your knuckles graze the pericardial sac. This is more serious than mining a kidney or a spleen. Keep your fingers closed. Let your pinkies overlap as if to scoop a drink of water. Center the heart in both hands. Concentrate, lift. Oh, the fragile surface slippery with blood. Set it gently in the bowl, still beating. Its faint whisper reaches your ears, and you are called to make your mark. Use a very fine brush. 3 eyelashes will do, and record. Forgive me. My last poem is called Ablutions. Her body, a mother's body. Arms, a lap. Her song, an alto lullaby. How she railed against the rolls and folds of middle age. How she hated her feet, as if feet should have a certain shape, not hers. The smell of soap fills the room as the attendant squeezes a face cloth, wipes my mother's closed eyes, her fine nose. Gently she arcs into my mother's hair, that powdery halo around thoughts gone mute. Right now, Mom, I would sing you a song if I could sing. But instead of your voice, I take from you the arch of your foot, the curve of your thigh and calf. And though you never saw it, I read your beauty in the bowl of my own hips. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Allison. That was incredible. Yeah, as both a daughter and a mother myself, I was incredibly moved by those poems. And to be honest, in general, I was overwhelmed by the beauty of all of your readings. Thank you so much to all of you, Sunita, Mike, Lana, Lori, Christine, Sultana, Lise, and Allison. Thank you for this incredible evening. It's been an incredible week. I can't believe it's over. I am so grateful to you all for joining me here for this last event. I want to thank Veronica here tonight for the tech support, because I would be completely hopeless at that aspect. And thank you to VerseFest in general, just for anticipating all of our needs and having people like Veronica here to help us with this medium. These events have been so smooth, and so I have so much gratitude to you for shepherding us through this medium. Just quickly before we go, I do want to thank Monty Reed, VerseFest current but outgoing director, and I really want to thank Avonlea Fotheringham, who will become VerseFest's new director. Avonlea has been incredible this week. She has supported all of us, holding us up with her warmth and dedication, but also keeping us afloat and on course with her amazing organizational and logistical magic. It is no small feat to organize a hybrid festival. The festival has had in-person events, live stream events, Zoom, recordings, sound in all mediums and on all levels. And this just takes an insane amount of labor. And I want to thank Avonlea and Monty for their leadership in getting us where we are today. And I want to thank again all of the volunteers that we heard from tonight who were here to celebrate. So I'm just going to say again, thank you, Sunita, Mike, Lana, Lori, Christine, Shazzy, Lise, and Allison. Thank you, all of you out there. I see that we have quite an amazing attendance here on Zoom, and I know that there are also people watching on the live stream. This event will continue to be up as well on the website, and people can watch it, family and friends who weren't able to catch it live. This festival wouldn't be what it is without our audience, our listeners. I can't believe it's over. Until next year, thank you.